I didn't just walk toward that table. I floated. I was wearing a sapphire silk gown that cost me $600, on sale because I'm practical, but still expensive enough to make my palms sweat when I handed over the credit card, and I felt invincible. The air in the Grand Aurora Ballroom smelled like expensive lilies and that specific ozone-charged scent of a high-stakes event going exactly according to plan. I could hear the jazz band, the Blue Note Collective, playing a low, sultry version of The Way You Look Tonight, which I had personally requested because it was the song Gavin hummed when he was in a good mood. I reached the head table, my heart doing this fluttery, triumphant little dance in my chest. This was it, the culmination of 4 months of hell, $18,000 of my savings, and sleepless nights worrying about napkin folds. I saw the empty chair next to Gavin, my chair. I had hand calligraphed the place card myself, Quincy, in sweeping gold ink that took me 3 hours to perfect because I wanted the loops to be elegant, not desperate. Gavin was laughing at something his father, Kenneth, had just said. He looked good. I have to admit that. He was wearing the midnight blue bespoke suit I'd surprised him with for our anniversary, and his hair was styled with that effortless, I woke up like this but actually spent $40 on pomade look. I reached out, my hand grazing the back of the velvet chair, ready to slide in and take my place as the devoted wife of the birthday boy. That's when he touched me. It wasn't a caress. It was a clamp. His hand shot out and wrapped around my wrist, tight enough to grind my bracelet into the skin. The laughter at the table died instantly, like someone had cut a power cord. "Not here," he whispered. It was a hiss, really. Low, guttural, and completely at odds with the charming smile plastered on his face. I froze. My brain stuttered. "Excuse me?" I whispered back, trying to keep my smile fixed so the 200 guests watching us wouldn't see the panic rising in my throat. "The VIP seating is full, Quincy," he said, his voice dropping an octave. That smooth sales voice he used when he was trying to close a difficult client. He leaned in, smelling like the sandalwood cologne I'd bought him. "You're sitting with the guests, table 19, by the kitchen." "Table 19?" I stared at him. Table 19 was the overflow table. It was where we put his second cousin who chewed with his mouth open and the intern from his office who hadn't RSVP'd until yesterday. "Gavin, stop joking," I hissed, trying to pull my wrist free. "This is the head table. That's my name card." "Actually," a voice came from behind me. It was a voice like poured honey over crushed glass. "I think that's my seat." I turned. Standing there was Victoria. Victoria Vance. Gavin's college ex-girlfriend, the venture capitalist who had recently been featured in 30 Under 30, and who made me feel like a chaotic pile of receipts every time I saw her. She was wearing a champagne dress that looked like liquid gold poured over her body. It was backless. Of course it was backless. And she wasn't looking at me with sympathy. She was looking at me with a smirk that could have peeled paint off the walls. "Gavin thought it would be better if the investors sat together," Victoria said, breezing past me. She didn't ask. She didn't hesitate. She just flowed into the gap between me and my husband. Gavin released my wrist and immediately placed his hand on the small of her back. "You've earned it, Vic," he said, loud enough for the entire table to hear. "Upgrade." And then, the sound that haunts me. His mother, Deidre, let out a delighted little titter. His sister Bethany covered her mouth, but her eyes were dancing. They were laughing. At me. Standing there in my $600 dress, holding a clutch bag that suddenly felt like a brick, while another woman sat in my chair. I stood there for exactly 5 seconds. It felt like 5 years. I could feel the heat rising up my neck, a physical wave of humiliation. 200 people were watching. I saw my brother, Mitchell, halfway out of his chair at table 4, his fists clenched on the white tablecloth, ready to come over there and commit a felony. I locked eyes with him and gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of my head. Not yet. I looked back at Gavin. He wasn't even looking at me anymore. He was pouring champagne into Victoria's glass. "Carry on," I said. My voice was steady. It didn't shake. I don't know how, but it didn't shake. I wouldn't want to interrupt the performance. I turned on my heel. I didn't go to table 19. I walked straight toward the double oak doors at the back of the room. And as I walked, the sound of their laughter followed me, sharp and jagged, fueling a fire in my belly that was about to burn this entire hotel to the ground. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. To understand why I didn't just scream and flip the table over right then and there, you have to understand the kind of woman I am, or rather, the kind of woman I was for 7 years. I am a forensic accountant. My entire life is built on the premise that numbers tell a story that people try to hide. When a CFO buys a boat he can't afford, I'm the one who finds the shell company in the Cayman Islands. When a nonprofit director starts wearing bespoke suits, I'm the one who notices the consulting fees to a vendor that doesn't exist. I trace lines. I find patterns. I manage chaos. Gavin loved that about me. At least he said he did. We met at a networking event downtown 7 years ago. I was presenting on digital fraud prevention. Sexy, I know. And he was in the third row, actually taking notes. He was in tech sales. He was the guy with the blinding smile, the firm handshake, the guy who could sell ice to a polar bear and make the bear thank him for the transaction. "You're like a detective," he'd told me that first night, handing me a glass of cheap Pinot Grigio like it was vintage Bordeaux. But for money, that's fascinating. Our marriage was efficient. That's the best word for it. We weren't the couple making out in the rain in a rom-com. We were the couple who had a shared Google Calendar and a synchronized retirement strategy. I was the chief operating officer of Gavin and Quincy, Inc. I handled the mortgage, the investments, the taxes, and the savings. I made sure his credit score stayed in the high 700s. I balanced the checkbook every Sunday morning with a cup of black coffee and a specific mechanical pencil. Gavin was the face of the operation. He handled the social capital, the dinner parties, the client drinks, the charm offensive. He told me I grounded him. He told his mother, Deidre, that I was sensible. I hated that word, but I accepted it because I thought sensible meant safe. We lived in a 3-bedroom townhouse in the suburbs that was perfectly nice and perfectly beige. We had Friday date nights at the local Italian place where the waiter knew our order. Chicken parm for him, risotto for me. It was a good life. It was a stable life. But looking back, I can see the ledger didn't balance. I was pouring assets into the marriage, my time, my energy, my bonuses, and Gavin was a liability I refused to audit. He'd come home from client dinners, smelling like expensive steak and whiskey, complaining about how hard it was to be on all the time. I'd rub his shoulders and listen to him vent, ignoring the fact that he never asked about my day spent chasing digital paper trails. I convinced myself that his lack of interest in the details was just how he was wired. He was big picture. I was fine print. He was the kite. I was the string. I didn't realize that the kite was looking for a pair of scissors the entire time. The nightmare started 4 months ago, on a Tuesday. Gavin came home with that manic energy he gets when he's been listening to too many entrepreneurial podcasts. He slammed his messenger bag onto the kitchen island, nearly knocking over my vase of tulips. "Quincy, babe, we need to talk," he said, loosening his tie. I looked up from my laptop. I was in the middle of a complex reconciliation for a client, but I closed the lid. "Is everything okay? Did you lose the account?" No, nothing like that." He waved his hand dismissively. "It's my birthday. The big 4-0. It's coming up." "I know," I smiled. "I was thinking we could do that dinner at Le Bernardin with your parents. Maybe a weekend in the Catskills?" He looked at me like I had just suggested we celebrate by eating dirt. "Dinner? Quincy, you don't turn 40 twice? This is a milestone. It's a branding opportunity." "A branding opportunity," I repeated, blinking. "It's a birthday, Gavin, not a product launch." "In my industry, it's the same thing." He started pacing the kitchen, his voice rising. Look at guys like Peterson. When he turned 40, he rented out a yacht. It showed everyone he had arrived. I've been plateauing, Quince. I need to shake things up. I need to show the firm, show the clients that Gavin Holloway is a heavyweight. He stopped pacing and leaned across the island, grabbing my hands. His eyes were wide, pleading. I want a party, a real party, like a shut down a venue and hire a band party, something legendary. I did the mental math instantly. Gavin, a party like that, you're talking $10,000, $15,000. We're saving for the lake house down payment. You know that. We can dip into the savings, he said quickly, too quickly. Just this once. Consider it an investment in my career. If I land one big client from this, it pays for itself. You're the planner. You're the magician with the budget. Surprise me. Make it amazing. He gave me that boyish grin, the one that used to make my stomach do flip-flops, but now, in hindsight, just looks like a shark baring its teeth. Come on, Q. Don't you think I deserve it? After how hard I've been working. And because I was the sensible one, because I wanted to prove I wasn't just a boring calculator with legs, I caved. Okay, I sighed. I'll see what I can do, but the cap is $15,000, not a penny more. He kissed me then, a hard, excited smack on the lips. You're the best, seriously. Go wild. Surprise me. If only I had known just how much of a surprise he was actually looking for. I threw myself into planning that party like it was a forensic investigation. I became obsessed. It was my way of proving that even after 5 years of marriage, I could still bring the magic. I scouted venues for 3 weeks until I found the Grand Aurora. It was perfect. Exposed brick, industrial chic, vintage Edison bulbs everywhere. I tasted 7 different caterers. I fought with a pastry chef about the exact shade of gold leaf for the whiskey barrel cake Gavin would love. I was building a monument to my husband. But here is where I made my first mistake. Or maybe my first discovery. I was trying to sync our digital calendars to schedule the venue walkthrough. Gavin is terrible at managing his iCloud permissions. He usually just clicks allow all and forgets about it. I logged into our shared cloud account to add the date, and I noticed a new folder in his personal drive. It was labeled simply Project Vi. My heart gave a little skip. V? Valentine's? Vows? I clicked it open. Inside, there were subfolders. One was labeled Venue Options Tropical. Another was Ring Designs. And a third was Vows Draft. I sat back in my office chair, my hand covering my mouth. Oh my God. He wasn't just planning a birthday party. He was planning a vow renewal. V stood for vows. It made perfect sense in my head. He had been so insistent on this party, so focused on branding and showing people. Maybe the surprise wasn't for him, maybe it was for me. Maybe he wanted to renew our vows in front of everyone to show how solid we were. I opened the Venue Options folder. It was full of PDFs for resorts in Bora Bora and the Maldives. My eyes welled up. I had been so hard on him, so strict about the budget, and here he was, dreaming of taking me to paradise to recommit his life to me. I closed the folder immediately. I didn't want to spoil the surprise. I wiped my eyes, feeling a surge of guilt mixed with overwhelming love. I decided right then and there to double my efforts. If he was planning something this romantic, I was going to make sure his birthday part was absolutely flawless. I transferred another $3,000 from my personal rainy day fund into the party budget. I was so happy. I was floating on a cloud of delusion so thick you could have walked on it. I walked around for weeks with a secret smile, thinking I was the luckiest woman in the world. I was an idiot. 2 months before the party, the cracks started to show. Not in the party planning, that was going smoothly, but in the reality of my life. It was a Tuesday evening. Gavin had returned from a sales trip to Denver the night before. He was in the shower, singing loudly, and I was unpacking his suitcase to take his suits to the dry cleaner. I was checking the pockets. Habit, really. Sometimes he left receipts or business cards I needed to log for his taxes. I reached into the inner pocket of his charcoal gray suit jacket, the one he wore for closer meetings. My fingers brushed against plastic. I pulled it out. It was a hotel key card, but it wasn't for the Marriott in Denver, where he always stayed. It was a generic white card with a stylized skyline logo and the words, "The Drake, Chicago," printed in silver. I frowned. Chicago? He hadn't been to Chicago. He was in Denver. I had seen the flight itinerary he forwarded me. I turned the card over. There was no date stamped on it, but the magnetic strip looked scratched, used. I stood there in the middle of our bedroom holding that piece of plastic. The shower water turned off. I heard the curtain rings slide across the rod. "Quincy, you home?" he called out. "Yeah," I said, my voice sounding tinny to my own ears. "Just grabbing your dry cleaning." I slipped the key card into the pocket of my jeans. "Great, thanks, babe," he yelled back. I walked downstairs, my mind racing. "Rationalize it, Quincy," I told myself. Maybe his flight got diverted. Maybe he had a layover. Maybe he borrowed a jacket from a colleague. But the forensic accountant in me was already whispering, layovers don't require hotel keys, and nobody borrows a suit jacket that fits perfectly. I went to the kitchen and pulled up his flight confirmation on my phone. Denver to home. Direct flight. No layovers, no Chicago. I felt a cold prickle at the base of my neck. I looked at the Project V folder in my mind. Maybe the surprise involved Chicago? Maybe he went there to look at rings? I wanted to believe it. God, I wanted to believe it. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing fast. For 3 days, I didn't say anything. I just watched him. I watched how he guarded his phone, placing it face down on the nightstand. I watched how his eyes darted away when I asked about the Denver conference. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed reassurance. I needed to know that the Chicago key card was just part of the big romantic vow renewal surprise. I waited until he was at the gym on Saturday morning. I sat down at my desktop computer and logged back into the cloud account. I needed to see the vows draft folder. Just a peek. Just to read a few lines about how much he loved me, to soothe the panic in my chest. I navigated to the Project Vi folder. My hand was shaking on the mouse. I double-clicked Vows Draft. It wasn't a Word document. It was a PDF. I opened it. The document header didn't say Vows. It said Venture Capital Pitch Deck, Morrison Holdings. I scrolled down, confused. Why was this here? Then I saw the subheading, Founders, Victoria Vance and Gavin Holloway. My stomach dropped. Victoria. V wasn't for vows. V was for Victoria. I frantically clicked back and opened the Venue Options Tropical folder. I looked closer at the PDFs this time. They weren't wedding packages. They were long-term villa rentals. I opened a file named Timeline. It was a spreadsheet, a timeline of dates. Oct 15, launch party, birthday. Oct 20, file separation papers, quietly. Nov 1, relocate to Costa Rica, remote work phase. Jan 1, public announcement of partnership. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. There was no vow renewal. There was no romantic surprise. Project V was an exit strategy. He was planning to leave me. He was planning to launch a business with his ex-girlfriend, move to Costa Rica, and he was using his birthday party, the party I was paying for, the party I was slaving over, as the launch event. I ran to the bathroom and dry heaved into the toilet. The betrayal was so physical, it felt like I had swallowed broken glass. He wasn't just cheating, he was orchestrating my obsolescence on a spreadsheet. I needed proof, hard proof. The timeline spreadsheet was damning, but it was circumstantial. Anyone could argue it was just a business idea. I needed the conversations. I needed to know how long this had been going on. I remembered his iPad. He kept it in his bedside drawer, mostly for reading comics, but it was synced to his iMessage account. I waited until Tuesday night. Gavin came home late claiming a client crisis. He smelled like expensive perfume, her perfume I realized with a jolt, and went straight to the shower to wash off the day. The second the water started running, I was in the bedroom. I pulled the iPad out of the drawer. My hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped it. I typed in his passcode, 0404, his birthday, the narcissist, and it unlocked. I tapped the green messages icon. There she was, Victoria Vance, pinned to the top. I opened the thread. Victoria. Is the Quincy situation handled? We need her calm for the party. Gavin. She's clueless. She's actually expanding the budget. It's hilarious. She's paying for her own funeral. Victoria. Good. The investors need to see us as a power couple. Once the party is over, we cut the cord. Gavin. I can't wait to be done with her boring spreadsheets. I need someone on my level, Vic. I felt tears streaming down my face, hot and angry. Boring spreadsheets. Paying for her own funeral. I needed to save this. I needed to send it to myself. I hit the select button to forward the messages. I selected the photos, them in bed together, them on a boat, them looking at my money like it was theirs. I tapped AirDrop. My phone popped up. I pressed Send. Suddenly the screen went black. A white spinning wheel appeared in the center. What? No. The screen flashed. Erasing iPad, a remote wipe initiated. I stared in horror. He knew, or he was paranoid. He had his phone in the bathroom. He must have realized he left the iPad and triggered a remote wipe from his iPhone. No, 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 I whispered frantically, tapping the screen. It was useless. The progress bar shot across the screen. Apple logo. Hello. The iPad had been reset to factory settings. The messages were gone. The timeline file was on the cloud, which he could delete at any second. I had seen the murder weapon, but the evidence had just dissolved in my hands. The shower water turned off. I shoved the iPad back into the drawer and scrambled onto the bed, grabbing a book, pretending to read. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there listening to Gavin breathe, a rhythmic, oblivious sound that made me want to scream. I had lost the digital proof, but I knew something about Gavin. He was lazy. He relied on digital convenience, but he was sloppy with the physical world. At 3 a.m., when his breathing was deep and heavy, I slipped out of bed. I put on my robe and crept downstairs to the garage. The garage was cold. The concrete floor bit into my bare feet. I walked over to his car, a sleek silver Audi that he insisted was necessary for client impressions. I tried the handle. Locked. I went to the key hook by the door. His keys were there. I grabbed them, pressing the unlock button, praying the chirp wouldn't wake him. Chirp, chirp. I froze. Silence from the bedroom upstairs. I opened the driver's side door and started searching. Center console, gum wrappers, a phone charger, a parking stub from the office, glove box, insurance, manual, napkins. Nothing. I moved to the trunk. It was empty, clean. I was losing hope. Maybe he was smarter than I thought. Then I lifted the panel that covered the spare tire. Tucked into the wheel well, wrapped in a microfiber cloth, was a small black object. A phone, a burner phone, an old Samsung flip phone, and next to it, a crumpled Wendy's bag. But it wasn't full of trash. It was stuffed with receipts. I grabbed the phone and the bag and ran back inside, locking the car. I retreated to my home office, my sanctuary, and dumped the contents of the bag onto my desk. It was a treasure trove. Physical receipts he hadn't wanted to put in his wallet. Tiffany & Co., $5,000, diamond tennis bracelet. The Drake Hotel, Chicago, wanting $200. Four Seasons, Seattle, $800. StubHub, front row tickets to Beyonce, wanting $500. I checked the dates. They matched his sales trips. I turned on the burner phone. It wasn't password protected. The call log was just one number, Victoria. There were no texts on this one. They used the iPad for that. But the call history went back 8 months. Hours and hours of calls. I didn't have the texts anymore, but I had the financial trail. And as a forensic accountant, the money trail is the only language I need to speak. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I sat at my desk with 3 monitors firing, a pot of coffee, and a cold, hard rage fueling me. I had the receipts, but I needed to link them to the bigger picture. I needed to know about the Project Vi funding. I pulled up our joint bank account history. I scrolled back 2 months. There it was, a deposit for $25,000. The label was MCH, consulting fee. MCH, Morrison Capital Holdings, Victoria's firm. I stared at the screen. Why would Victoria's firm pay Gavin $25,000? He didn't consult for them. I decided to bluff. I picked up my phone and dialed the main line for Morrison Capital Holdings. Morrison Capital, this is Ulysses speaking, a tired voice answered. Hi, Ulysses, I said, putting on my most officious accounts payable voice. This is Brenda from Vendor Management. I'm trying to reconcile a payment to a Gavin Holloway for $25,000, but the coding looks wrong on my end. Can you pull the invoice for me? Ugh, hold on, Ulysses sighed. He sounded overworked and over it. I heard typing. Holloway. Okay, here it is. It's coded to Event Logistics, Grand Aurora Party. My breath caught. Event Logistics? But it was deposited as a consulting fee. Yeah, well, Victoria changes the codes all the time, Ulysses grumbled. She screams at me if I question it. She put this through on the corporate Amex as client development, but the memo says birthday bash. Honestly, she treats this company like her personal piggy bank. She threw a fit yesterday because I didn't order her specific oat milk. I paused. A disgruntled assistant. Jackpot. Ulysses, I said, dropping the Brenda voice slightly. That sounds incredibly frustrating. She sounds difficult. Difficult? She's a nightmare. She made me walk her dog in the rain in my Gucci loafers. Listen, I said, I'm actually an external auditor looking into some irregularities. If you could forward me that specific invoice and the Amex statement showing the charge, it would really help clear up this coding error. You wouldn't want to be implicated in a miscoding, right? Implicated? He sounded nervous, then vindictive. You know what? Fine. I'm quitting next week anyway. I'll send you the whole file. Check your email in 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, my inbox pinged. I had it. The invoice. The corporate card statement showing the $25,000 payment was charged to Morrison Capital for strategic event planning, but wired to our personal account. This wasn't just cheating. This was corporate embezzlement. Victoria was stealing from her own investors to fund Gavin's exit strategy and my humiliation. I printed everything. 3 copies. I walked into the office of Samantha Sharp, the most terrifying divorce attorney in the city, carrying a 3-inch binder. Samantha is a woman who wears red lipstick as a warning sign. She listened to me for 40 minutes without interrupting. She looked at the receipts. She looked at the Ulysses email. She looked at the timeline I had reconstructed from memory. When I finished, she leaned back in her leather chair and smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator, spotting a wounded gazelle. This is art, Quincy, she said, tapping the binder. You have him on adultery, obviously, but the embezzlement, the fraud, this is leverage. I want a file now, I said. I want to serve him papers tonight. No, Samantha said sharply. Absolutely not. Why? I can't live with him knowing this. Because right now he thinks he's winning, Samantha explained, leaning forward. He thinks you're the clueless, boring wife paying for his launch party. If you confront him now, he'll hide assets. He'll spin the narrative. He'll warn Victoria and she'll cover her tracks at the firm. So what do I do? You let the party happen, Samantha said. Her eyes gleamed. You let him spend the money. You let Victoria sit in that chair. You let them think they have pulled off the perfect crime in front of 200 witnesses. And then, Samantha said, closing the binder with a satisfying thud, we execute Plan A. You don't just divorce him, Quincy. You detonate him. We file Monday morning. But Sunday night? Sunday night is for the show. I looked at the binder. I thought about the "not here" whisper I knew was coming. I thought about the smirk. "Okay," I said, feeling my spine stiffen into steel. "Let's throw a party." The 3 weeks leading up to the party were a masterclass in psychological warfare, executed entirely from my side of the bed. I woke up every morning next to a man who was actively planning to bankrupt and discard me, and I made him coffee. I asked him if he wanted oat milk or regular. I ironed the shirts he wore to meetings with the woman who was helping him destroy my life. Gavin was distracted, vibrating with a nervous energy that he tried to pass off as excitement for the launch, which he still claimed was just his birthday. He spent his evenings on his phone, angling the screen away from me, thumbing out messages that I knew, thanks to my brief window into his digital soul. Word of Victoria. "Work is crazy," he'd say, not looking up from the blue light. "Q4 quotas. You know how it is." "I know exactly how it is," I'd reply, staring at the back of his head, imagining a target painted there. I channeled my rage into the details. If he wanted a party, I would give him a party so perfect it would feel like a movie set, which was appropriate since he was just an actor hitting his marks. I confirmed the ice sculpture. I upgraded the bourbon package to the top shelf selection because I knew Victoria drank Blanton's. I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her to feel safe. Buying the dress was the final piece of armor. I went to a boutique downtown, a place I usually avoided because the sales assistants looked at my Ann Taylor loft suits with veiled pity. I found it on the clearance rack, a floor-length sapphire silk gown with a slit up the thigh that felt scandalous for a forensic accountant. "It's for a special occasion," I told the salesgirl as she zipped me up. "Anniversary?" she asked, smoothing the fabric over my hips. "A funeral," I said, looking at myself in the mirror. "But for a marriage, not a person." She laughed, thinking I was joking. I didn't correct her. When I brought it home, Gavin barely glanced at the garment bag. "Nice, babe," he said, texting. "Hey, did you confirm the photographer? I want to make sure we get shots of the VIP table." "Confirmed," I said. "He knows exactly who to focus on." He didn't catch the tone. He was too busy living in his future to notice his present was armed with a detonator. The night of the party, the Grand Aurora looked like the inside of a jewel box. The exposed brick walls were washed in amber light, and the tables were set with crisp white linens and centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus. It was breathtaking. It was expensive. It was a stage. I stood by the entrance greeting guests, playing the role of the doting wife. "So glad you could come." "Yes, 40 is a big one." "Oh, thank you, the dress is new." People were whispering. I could hear it. Quincy really outdid herself. Lucky guy. I heard this cost 50 grand. Gavin was working the room, a glass of scotch in one hand, shaking hands with the other. He looked the part of the successful tech mogul he so desperately wanted to be. He stopped by me once, about 30 minutes in. "Everything looks great, Q," he said, squeezing my shoulder. It was a patronizing squeeze, the kind you give a vendor who delivered on time. Really top-notch. "I aimed for memorable," I said, smiling so hard my cheeks hurt. "Oh, it will be," he winked. "Just wait." Then the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't a sound, it was a pressure change. The doors opened and Victoria Vance walked in. She wasn't alone. She had an entourage of 3 junior associates trailing her like ducklings, but nobody looked at them. They looked at her. The champagne dress, the height, the sheer audacity of her presence. She walked in like she owned the building. Gavin's head snapped toward her like a magnet finding north. He didn't just look at her, he practically vibrated. He checked his watch, then looked at me. "Dinner's starting," he said abruptly. "We should sit." "Let's go," I said. We walked toward the head table together, a united front for the last 10 seconds of our marriage. I saw the place cards. Gavin Holloway, Quincy Holloway, Kenneth Holloway, Deidre Holloway. Everything was in place. The trap was set. All I had to do was walk into it. We reached the table. The jazz band had quieted down to a low hum. The guests were finding their seats, the scrape of chairs on the hardwood floor creating a chaotic symphony. I moved to the chair with my name on it. I reached for the back of the chair, and then it happened. The moment from the beginning, the hand on the wrist, the "not here," the whisper that sounded like a gunshot in a library. "Sit with the guests." I watched the scene replay, but this time I wasn't just reacting. I was recording. I saw the way Deidre's eyes lit up when Victoria approached, confirming she knew. I saw Kenneth raise his glass to Victoria before she even sat down. I saw the smirk on Victoria's face as she slid into my seat, the way she adjusted her dress to ensure the slit was visible. "You've earned it," Gavin said to her, loud and proud. The laughter from the family table hit me again, sharp and cruel. But this time, instead of shame, I felt a cold crystal clarity. This was the evidence. This was the motive. This was the jury, the judge, and the executioner, all rolled into one moment. I looked at Gavin one last time. He wasn't looking at me. He was leaning in to whisper something to Victoria, his hand resting possessively on the back of my chair. "Carry on," I said, my voice cutting through the local noise of the table. I turned away. I didn't run. I didn't stumble. I walked with the precision of a soldier, marching to a cadence only I could hear. I could feel the eyes of the guests on me. The whispers were starting to spread like a virus. Is that his ex? Where is Quincy going? I walked past table 19. I didn't stop. I walked past the bar. I pushed through the heavy oak doors into the hallway, leaving the warmth and the noise behind me. The doors swung shut, sealing the party inside. The hallway was cool and quiet, lined with empty coat racks and marble floors that echoed the clicking of my heels. My hands started to shake, the adrenaline finally hitting my bloodstream, but my mind was a tactical computer. I leaned against the wall and pulled out my phone. It was 7:42 p.m. First call. Samantha. She answered on the first ring. "Is it done?" "It's done," I said, my voice steady. "He did exactly what we predicted. Victoria is in the chair." The family laughed. "Okay," Samantha said, and I could hear the click of a pen. "I'm filing the petition electronically right now. It's time-stamped. You are officially separated as of this minute. Go get him." "I will." Second call. American Express Corporate Fraud Department. I dialed the number I had saved. "This is Quincy Holloway," I said to the automated voice, then punched 0 until I got a human. "Fraud operations, this is Marcus." "Hi, Marcus," I said, pitching my voice to sound distressed but clear. "I need to report the unauthorized use of a corporate card for Morrison Capital Holdings. I believe it's being used for a personal event right now, in violation of the cardholder agreement." "Do you have the card details?" "I have the statement," I said, reading the numbers from the printout I had in my clutch. "The cardholder is Victoria Vance. The charge is for the Grand Aurora Ballroom. It's a birthday party, Marcus, not a business event." I heard typing. "If it's a personal expense on a corporate line, that's a code 10. We can flag it immediately." "Please do," I said. "The bill is being settled tonight." Third call, Mitchell. "I'm in the lobby," my brother said before I could speak. "I saw you walk out. Do you want me to come in swinging?" "No," I said. "I need you to stand by the door. Just watch. And maybe record." "You got it, Q." I hung up. I took a deep breath. I reapplied my lipstick in the reflection of a framed painting of a ship at sea. I looked composed. I looked dangerous. I pushed the doors open and walked back in. The room had settled into the hum of dinner conversation. Waiters were dropping plates of butternut squash soup. Gavin was standing at the head table, tapping a spoon against his champagne flute. Clink, clink, clink. "If I could have everyone's attention," he boomed, his voice projecting easily. "I just want to say..." I didn't wait. I walked straight to the small stage where the band was set up. The lead singer, a guy named Eris I'd tipped $100 earlier, saw me coming. He handed me the microphone without a word and cut the music. The silence was sudden and violent. Gavin froze mid-sentence, his spoon hovering in the air. "Actually, Gavin," I said, my voice amplified by the speakers, booming off the brick walls. "I think I should say a few words first." Gavin glared at me. "Quincy, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" I smiled. It was a terrifying smile. "Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Quincy, Gavin's wife, or rather, the woman who spent the last 4 months planning this legendary event." There was a scattered, confused applause. "I know you're all impressed by the venue," I continued, gesturing around. "The Grand Aurora, the top-shelf bourbon, this cake that cost more than my first car. The total bill for tonight is roughly $43,000. A gasp rippled through the room. "Now, Gavin told me we were paying for this out of our joint savings," I said, locking eyes with him. He was pale now. "But I'm a forensic accountant. I checked the numbers, and I found something interesting." I reached into my clutch and pulled out the folded papers. "Only $18,000 came from us," I said, holding up the paper. "The rest?" "A $25,000 wire transfer from Morrison Capital Holdings." I pointed at Victoria. She looked like she wanted to liquefy and drain through the floorboards. "That's Victoria Vance's venture capital firm," I explained to the room, my voice teacher calm. "Now why would an ex-girlfriend's company pay for a birthday party? Unless—" I paused for effect. "Unless it wasn't a gift. Unless it was embezzlement." "Quincy, stop!" Gavin shouted, stepping off the riser. "You're crazy!" And the best part? I ignored him. "I found the messages. The plan to leave me, the plan to use this party as a launch for your new life together. It's all here." I waved the stack of papers. "So, enjoy the cake, everyone. It was paid for with stolen money. Happy birthday, Gavin." I dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a deafening thud. Chaos erupted. It wasn't the polite murmuring of earlier. It was full-blown bedlam. People were standing up. Phones were out recording. Gavin was sprinting toward me, his face a mask of purple rage. "You bitch," he hissed, grabbing my arm again. "You just ruined everything. Fix this. Tell them you're joking." "I'm not joking," I said, yanking my arm away. "And I'm not fixing it. I'm a guest, remember? Guests don't fix things." Before he could grab me again, Jasmine, the venue manager, appeared. She looked frantic. She was flanked by 2 security guards. "Mr. Holloway?" she asked, her voice high and tight. "Not now!" Gavin snapped. "Sir, we have a problem," Jasmine said, stepping in front of him. "We just attempted to run the final payment on the card on file for the bar tab and the remaining catering balance. The card has been declined." Victoria appeared at Gavin's elbow, looking breathless. "What?" "The card," Jasmine said, holding up her tablet. "It's coming back as refer to issuer, fraud. We've been instructed to confiscate the card." Victoria's face went sheet white. "That's impossible. That's a corporate Amex Black Card." "It's frozen," I said, helpful as ever. "I reported it as stolen about 10 minutes ago, since, using it for a boyfriend's birthday party is technically theft." "You reported it?" Victoria screeched. "You can't do that." "I can," I said. "I'm a concerned citizen." "Mr. Holloway," Jasmine said, her voice hardening, "unless you can provide an alternative form of payment for $15,000 right now, we are shutting down the bar and suspending service immediately. Insurance policy." Gavin patted his pockets. He looked at Victoria. Victoria shook her head. Her personal assets were likely tied up, or she was too smart to use a personal card now that the fraud was exposed. I don't have that limit on my personal card," Gavin stammered. He looked at me. "Quincy, the joint account. Pay it. We'll sort this out later." I laughed. It was a genuine, bubbling laugh. "The joint account? The one you were planning to drain? No, I don't think so." "Quincy!" "Shut it down, Jasmine," I said to the manager. "Pack it up." I didn't stay to watch the police arrive, though I heard they did. Mitchell drove me to my mother's house. I sat in his truck, shaking, eating a bag of stale pretzels he had in the glove box, feeling like I had just run a marathon. The next morning, I woke up in my childhood bedroom. My phone had 400 notifications. "Don't look," Mitchell said, walking in with coffee, but he was grinning. I looked. Someone, probably one of Gavin's millennial cousins, had live-streamed the speech. A clip titled, "Wife Roasts Cheating Husband at 40K Birthday Party" was trending on TikTok. It had 2.4 million views. I watched it. The audio was crisp. Paid for with stolen money. The camera panned to Victoria's face, which was frozen in a rictus of terror. The comments were a war zone, but mostly they were cheering. "You're savage, Queen. The receipts. She brought paper receipts. I am deceased. Now forensic baddie. As an accountant, this is my Avengers Endgame. A Tech Bro Zero. I know that guy. He's a jerk. Glad he got roasted." "You're viral," Mitchell said. "Now if the Sapphire wife is trending." I put the phone down. "Is he calling?" "Blocked him," Mitchell said. "But Mom said Deidre called the house line 3 times. She sounds hysterical." "Good," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "Let her ring." Deidre didn't stop calling. Finally, 3 days later, I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a Starbucks halfway between our houses. She looked 10 years older. Her hair, usually perfectly coiffed, was flat. She wasn't wearing makeup. "You destroyed him," she said the moment I sat down. No hello, no coffee. "He's been fired, did you know that? His firm saw the video. They fired him for reputational damage. And Victoria, she's under investigation." "I know," I said calmly. "Actions have consequences, Deidre." "It was a party, Quincy. A mistake. You didn't have to humiliate him globally. You didn't have to ruin his life." She was crying now, tears tracking through the powder on her face. "He's my son." "He gave my seat away," I said, "and you laughed." She stopped crying. She blinked, looking shocked that I remembered. "I saw you," I said. "You and Bethany. You thought it was funny that he was replacing me. You thought I was a joke." I didn't think." "I know you didn't think," I interrupted. "But here's the thing, Deidre." I pulled out my phone and opened a screenshot I had saved from the cloud before the wipe. It was a text from Gavin to Victoria about his mother. "Gavin, my mom is going to be so annoying about the wedding. We need to handle her. Maybe ship her off to a cruise during the ceremony. She's such a nag." I slid the phone across the table. "Read that." Deidre read it. Her hand flew to her mouth. "He said that?" "He hates you too, Deidre," I said softly. "He hates everyone who isn't serving him. You were just next on the list." She stared at the phone. She looked at me. The hostility drained out of her, replaced by a hollow, crushing shame. She stood up, leaving her purse on the table for a moment before grabbing it. She didn't say goodbye. She just walked away, looking like a ghost. 2 weeks later, we met for mediation. Gavin's lawyer was Robert Sterling, a man who charged $800 an hour to intimidate people. He walked in like he owned the conference room. Gavin looked like a wreck. He had lost weight. He was wearing a suit that looked like he had slept in it. He wouldn't look at me. "We want the house," Robert announced, opening his briefcase. "And we want spousal support. Mr. Holloway is currently unemployed due to your client's malicious defamation." Samantha didn't even blink. "Malicious defamation? Truth is an absolute defense, Robert. And we have proof of the embezzlement." "That's pending investigation," Robert waved a hand. "We want half the assets." "Okay," Samantha said. "Let's talk assets and liabilities." She slid a spreadsheet across the table. "We subpoenaed Gavin's personal credit report," Samantha said. "The real one, not the one he showed Quincy." I looked at the sheet. I hadn't seen this yet. "Gambling debts," Samantha read. "Online poker, crypto losses, and $50,000 in personal loans from high-interest lenders. Total undisclosed debt, $83,000. Gavin flinched. Robert stopped moving. He looked at his client. "Gavin, is this true?" "I was going to pay it back," Gavin mumbled, "with the new business." "The business funded by fraud?" Samantha asked. "Here's the deal. Quincy keeps the house. She keeps her retirement. You keep your debt. And in exchange, we don't send this new file regarding the crypto laundering to the IRS." Robert closed his folder. He looked at Gavin with pure disgust. "Take the deal," Robert whispered. Gavin looked at me then. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Quincy, please, I'm drowning." "I know," I said. "You should probably learn to swim." I signed the papers. I walked out debt-free and husband-free. 6 months later, I was sitting in a coffee shop near my new office. I had been promoted to director of the new fraud division when I saw her, Victoria. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. No designer dress, no entourage. She looked smaller. She was typing on a laptop that looked 5 years old. I debated leaving, but I was done running. I walked over. "Victoria!" She jumped. She looked up and her eyes widened. "Quincy, mind if I sit?" I didn't wait for an answer. She closed her laptop. "I suppose you want to gloat? Go ahead. I lost the firm. I'm barred from trading for 5 years. I'm consulting for a bakery now." "I don't want to gloat," I said, surprised to find it was true. I heard Gavin tried to call you." Victoria let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, he tried. He showed up at my apartment, wanted to rekindle things, said we were victims of circumstance." "What did you say?" "I told him to get off my property before I called the cops," she said. "He borrowed money from me, Quincy. Even while we were together, he stole from me too." We sat there for a moment, two women connected by the same wreckage. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. She didn't look at me. She looked at her coffee. About the chair, about the laughing. It was cruel. "Yes," I said. "It was." "Are you happy?" she asked. "I am," I said. "I'm really happy." "Good," she said. "One of us should be." It's been 2 years now. I have a new apartment downtown, a loft with big windows that faces the skyline. I have a team of 12 forensic analysts working under me. I have a boyfriend named David who is an architect and who thinks my spreadsheets are sexy. Last Tuesday, I was walking to meet David for dinner. It was raining, a light drizzle that made the city look glossy. I saw a man walking toward me. He was wearing a raincoat that was too big for him. He was carrying a beat-up messenger bag. He looked tired, gray. It was Gavin. He saw me. He stopped. He looked at my tailored coat, my blowout, the way I was walking with my head up. "Quincy?" he said. His voice was hopeful, desperate. I stopped. I looked at him. I remembered the not here. I remembered the feeling of being small. I remembered the woman I used to be, the one who tried to make herself invisible to please him. She was gone. "Hello, Gavin," I said. "You look incredible," he said. I miss you." I looked at my watch. "I have to go. I'm late." "Can we get coffee sometime?" he asked. "Just to talk?" I smiled. It wasn't angry, it wasn't vindictive, it was just polite. "No," I said. "I don't think so." I stepped around him. I didn't look back. I walked toward the restaurant where David was waiting, where a glass of wine was poured, and where my seat, my real seat, was waiting for me. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.